hello. Communicate in English easily. Use Grammarly and feel confident with effective communication. Grammarly's instant corrections make your writing high quality and mistake-free, so you can focus on saying what you mean. Grammarly ensures you communicate clearly with fluency suggestions tailored specifically for you. See why 98% of multilingual speakers using Grammarly report that it helps them write in English fluently. You can also accelerate your productivity by using Grammarly to quickly compose and reply in your own voice. English writing made easy. Download for free at Grammarly.com.
Oh, hey, son.
Hey, how was your first day?
Good.
Come on, Dad.
Everyone else was, I don't know, younger.
That means you've got experience in that.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I think you're real clever, you know? Anyway, I got you something in the glove box. Before you ask, they didn't have fruit and nut.
There's a glass and a half in everyone.
feel like a little bit like it's the background music to an episode of Supernatural kind of thing. Spotify Premium provides Joe in the comments. I do not want copyright strikes on my channel. Although, I'm not going to live channel on YouTube, maybe I will not notice. It'd be fun to check, wouldn't it? Let's start wheeling that down. Ever so slightly. So then we'll get rid of the music altogether. And then what we have to do is we just have to press a few buttons, because then we go... Oh dear. Hey, there we go. That's better. It took a while to think about itself there for a second. There was that horrible moment where just everything just kind of went black, and I was just thinking, please don't tell me the driver's failed again. And he said it hasn't. No, it's actually working, which we will take and we will run with. Hello, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. We'll just give it a moment or two, just because the tweet's obviously gone out, messages, like social media bits and pieces have gone out, so we'll just go and just have and just give everybody a moment just to kind of get in. I'm also just going to take that moment as well, just to quickly check the YouTube. Just check the feed from through the channel itself and just make sure that everything is working there. That is indeed working, which is what we like to see. But yeah, we'll just give it another moment or two, just to let people kind of get in. Obviously, there's hockey happening this evening. We'll be trying our best to keep tabs on Belfast and whatever the ridiculous permutations are related to them qualifying for the next round of the Champions Hockey League. All things considered there. So no, they were down by 2-1 against Parla Beach there, and they do need to win, so we will see what happens on that front. What we will do last bit just before we get going is I will very, very quickly just press a few buttons. Let's just get that out. Are they already out? Oh, that's annoying. We'll talk about my criticisms of the Champions Hockey League momentarily, but I think this is probably one of them. Fair enough. A few people saying the same thing. I haven't read that much of bits and pieces today. I've been really busy today, strangely, with work. Either way, that's enough of that. Guys, girls, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here with you once again to go through all the mad, weird and wonderful from the world of the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division, that is our bread and butter, our home port, but of course, we will always take a look at absolutely every game across the entire structure, from the National as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you are all doing well. I don't know about where you are. I'm down here in the south, and it is absolutely winging it down here. Bear with me 2 seconds. Just a slight issue we're having here. There we go. Apologies, there was a bit of an issue there, just there. I realised that for whatever reason, our freezer door had fallen open. I definitely don't want that in the middle of it. So there we go on that. There we go on that front. Apologies there, but yes. Either way, the What's Current stream. It's Wednesday nights at 8 PM, all the way through the NIHL season, as we look and talk and chat about all the wonderful things that's happening across the NIHL. Because there's a lot to talk about, and it's great fun to have you all with us for that. A bit of housekeeping, of course, before we start. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That's your website, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL, and a fantastic bit of a historical log of everything I did relating to the bases at Bison, who of course are not playing this year, unfortunately. But there's a lot of stuff there. 12 years worth of writing and a variety of bits and pieces. Of course, this year we have the Banners on the Road series. You follow me around to games. Sunday's write-up is coming. I've just been suffering from a bad case of life and time getting in the way, but that piece will be up before the weekend. The plan is to try and get it out tomorrow. Yeah, I've just been a bit time poor this week, unfortunately, but it will be coming. I was in Slough, of course, along with the very good Joe Scutts. We had the opportunity to narrate over the jersey retirement of James Galazzi. I almost said Mark Galazzi there, that's my own fault. James Galazzi, his number 10 being retired by the Bees, and we've got to see them take on Solway, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there's also our Hockey Story series, long form piece of content. There's some stuff in pre-production for more Hockey Story stuff at the moment. It's just a few bits to kind of work out, and of course October, it's been a very busy month already in BOTW world, as you can appreciate. So, but yeah, some pre-production stuff for some new Hockey Stories pieces. But if you like your long form stuff, that's there on the website from the 19th century to the present day, into wars, behind the Iron Curtain, and much more with players, officials, and all kinds of people from the NHL to the NIHL and beyond. The other thing, of course, aside from everything you can get over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, is we are live here on YouTube. Hello! Please take a moment to help feed the algorithm hamster so he can keep spinning on his wheel. Hit like the video, subscribe, share it out with your bits and pieces to your friends. And of course, there's all the links down there for our social medias, for Twitter, for Facebook, as well as our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you like what you see, please do feel free to chuck a couple of quid in the hat. Would be massively appreciated for helping for some of the costs and stuff that we've got going on this year. And of course, we are live on YouTube, which means that you have the option of the chat box over there. Questions, comments, anything that you want to chuck in during the show whilst we're chatting away, please do. Try and keep the show as interactive as possible. But of course, if you are using the chat box, please do remember the golden rule here at BOTW, and that is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we will have a wonderful time, I am sure. Great to see folk in the chat already. Trinech won earlier, and it killed them before they even hit the ice. There's a joke in there, and I'm not going to make it. I think is probably what I will say. I will say on that front there, but a shame there for Belfast. Obviously, an up and down sort of bits and sort of campaign. A couple of games that they probably feel that they should have won, but didn't. I think really that game in Innsbruck was a massively missed opportunity on their part, but such is life. You know, the results were progressing for the Giants was obviously out of their hands, and the only way they could have done that was to put it in their own hands by winning games that they ended up losing. So a shame for them, but hopefully they can go out on a bit of a high today against Pardubice at home there at the Odyssey, and then the CHL journey comes to an end for British teams already at the first round. A couple of bits of news, obviously. I can see DOPs are in full swing today. There are suspensions flying out, mostly from some bits and pieces in Division 2 that I can see in terms of what we've had today. In the last sort of 35-40 minutes, we've had suspensions out of the Billingham Buccaneers Kingston Sharks game from the weekend. Tom Wakefield of the Buccaneers, along with Jensen Hardy and Harry Barwell of the Kingston Sharks, have all been suspended. Wakefield has got a 1-game suspension for fighting, as has Jensen Hardy, and Harry Barwell has been given a 1-game suspension for spearing. Clearly a bit of an interesting game that happened at the weekend up at the Forum in Division 2, which of course we'll look at a little bit later. The other bit of news, of course, is that we've had this evening out of the MK Lightning that we've had a confirmed date for and just sort of reconfirmation of the fact that Lee Jameson will have his number 19 retired by the Lightning. That game and jersey retirement will take place on the 18th of November. That should be a fantastic way to honour a Milton Keynes legend. There are many things people have said about Lee Jameson over the year, but had a superb career, very heavily associated with the Lightning, of course, and the fact that he's had his jersey retired by the club is not a huge surprise, I think, to anybody really. You think of the many people who it could have been, but all things considered, one, you certainly cannot argue with Jameson. Whether you loved him or hate him, you kind of had to respect him. And multiple trophy winner across his career. So congratulations to Lee on the honour. I'm sure that'll be a fantastic game. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure Jamie will tell me who that game is against. I haven't got the fixtures in front of me right at this second. I will do momentarily, of course, so we can check. But I'm sure somebody can tell me. Charlotte's popped up in the chat. Steelers and Clan tonight, of course. Reece Kelly with the first goal for the Clan. Oh, how the Wildcats would love to be having Reece Kelly right now. But congratulations to him on his first goal for Glasgow. That'd be fantastic. Of course, it had to be, didn't it? The Peterborough Phantoms. Who else? And of course, he did have that 1 year for Peterborough, didn't he? So a fitting game as much as any for Lee Jameson to get his jersey retired in. Definitely can't argue. Definitely can't argue with that one in terms of stuff. Otherwise, I think we can just kind of sort of potter on. Not immediately any other massive bits of news, though. Of course, do chuck bits in the chat as we're going along. The one thing I do want to quickly mention is NHL is DOPS again, just because of course I know Nicky Watt did a 4,000 accounting episode that's dropped in the last day or so with Shane Moore. I've taken the opportunity to watch it, and I think the thing there's a couple of sort of different sort of tracks in my brain that kind of run along with this, and I did mention it to Nicky earlier today. He hasn't. I don't know if he's responded yet because it's my notifications from Facebook Messenger are terrible, but there's a couple of things with it. One, the one thing I said to Nicky, if you haven't had the chance to go and check out the episode, then do, particularly the video episode, because one of the things that Nicky does with Shane is to kind of get the video up and kind of break down the incident. And actually, it's a really interesting thing to hear from an ex-player's perspective as to kind of the breakdown of how they look at it and why they think it's wrong and that kind of thing. And I think the interesting thing that happens here is that there's a lot of talk, and understandably a lot of talk from guys who've played the game about the fact that people need to be involved in the game who are involved in making these decisions. And part of me gets it, and the other part of me sees the point of having a neutral arbiter involved in this. And actually, I can't remember how many people Nicky says he reckons should kind of be on a disciplinary panel, whether it was 3 or 5 or something like that. But I actually would be a massive advocate of having somebody who isn't a hockey person involved in this, because actually one of the things that hockey is bad at, British hockey in particular, is being quite insular when it comes to these things. That person can't possibly know how to run things because they're not a hockey person. Well, actually, if you're a good administrator, or you are a good arbiter, like a professional solicitor or something like that, there is a place for you in it. Should a person with no ultimate background knowledge of the game be completely running something single-handedly by themselves, I think there is an argument there that you would kind of at least need to have the experience of running a sport at a high level before doing that, not just being a very, very good business executive, for example. Hockey is not the high street, right? But something I was kind of like reflecting on is that we do need sometimes that outside voice, that outside set of eyes. Well, your rules say that, and that looks like that. And then having that being able to kind of be tempered by some practical experience and practical knowledge from the ground. So what you get is a really well-rounded solution on that front. And I'm just interested to hear what people think, because obviously some of these suspensions are barn door, and of course we know that game misconduct now, with the match penalty having been moved out of the rule book, and all of these game misconduct penalties have their tariffs, and then there is that sort of look at and where the suspension, what tier is it, etc., etc. So the thing that I find interesting on this, and I still have to confess that the Darcy Flanagan suspension makes 0 sense to me on that front, because you can't ban a man for checking to the head when he doesn't check a man in the head. The video that they put out explaining their decision was really bad, because the video very clearly shows the fact that Flanagan makes no contact with the head of Joe Llewellyn. And that I think is a problematic thing that DOPS kind of need to answer on that front. I can appreciate, of course, that referees do a really hard job on the ground in real time, but the issue I think there is that the referee's eyes have seen something that isn't there. The video, like I say, the video is relatively clear. He's hit him here. He's hit him right. He's hit him high on the chest. Don't get me wrong, and but it's head and neck, right? Well, if my neck starts there and I'm hit here, that's not checking to the head. And you've got 2 guys. Llewellyn is 6'5", Flanagan's 6'3". They're big boys as it is anyway. There was no malice or intent in that one, and I think it's a problematic start for DOPS. The other thing I was thinking about, though, is that are we expecting too much too soon? Because ultimately, DOPS is brand new. Like, the season started, like, the first pre-season games were the first weekend of September. So we are 7 weeks deep into this new system. Why were we expecting perfection when ultimately it's so brand new? Now, should we expect a high standard? Yes, because if you're governing the thing that we're involved in, we want those people to be held to a high standard, not just go, well, mistakes happen, because mistakes do happen. But when you've got time and the ability to look at those mistakes, you should be able to rectify them. And yes, the EIHA in general is kind of run off of volunteer goodwill, and life can get in the way of being a volunteer. Most of us involved in this will, in some way, shape, or form, will be aware of that, particularly when it comes from hockey, and certainly I know that as well. But the frustrating thing on it is, I do wonder whether we're immediately just like leaping down the throat of something that's brand new and sort of saying this is rubbish, rather than actually going, right, you've come off track, come back, and being just a bit more kind of constructive with what we do, rather than immediately jumping down people's throats on it. And like, it's hard, isn't it? Because a bad thing is a bad thing is a bad thing, and we should say that. And the Flanagan suspension is a hooner. It is really bad decision making, because the thing they've banned him for, he's not done. But we've also got to think about how is the best way that people can use their voice to kind of bring DOPS back around into the realms of reason and reasonable decision making. And actually, that's kind of showing people the error of their ways. Who even is Mike Maidens? Now, this is the thing I've not got to the bottom with, and I have had a conversation with Mike Maidens in the past. But for my money, my understanding is that Mike Maidens is not making the decisions. Mike Maidens is your operational guy, saying, right, here is the rest report, here is the video, disciplinary panel, this is what you need to look at regarding this, please. And kind of organising it. So rather than people saying, like obviously we have in the video with Nikki and Shane, they talk about, I forget the gentleman's name, but sort of the independent sort of barrister person who's helping them look at bits and pieces. Now, if he's looking at stuff by himself, that's bad. I don't think that should happen. But my understanding with Mike is that Mike kind of sort of coordinates and orchestrates everything, puts it in front of the people who check it, comes back to Mike. Mike does the bit of going back to the clubs and saying, right, this, that, and that. Now, the one question I have asked of the EIHA today, and I did ask it a bit late in the day, so my apologies to them on that front. They haven't responded yet, and like I didn't expect them to in the time that I'd sort of given them in terms of responding. Was one of the things that Shane brings up is the cost of the appeal, and then the cost of adding evidence into it. Because the one thing that the £500 cost of putting together the appeal, if you're pulling bits and pieces together, like most things cost to appeal in any sport. The thing that the question I've put to the IHA is this idea of adding a piece of evidence in for your appeal costs £50 per piece of evidence. Now, the £500 fee to do an appeal is already, I think, probably quite high. A National Division club could probably take that on the chin. But could Lee Valley take that on the chin? Bradford? Altrincham? The lower down the structure, the higher the chances that a team is not going to be able to afford that. And then to charge them for evidence in their own defence, for me, felt very bad. So I have asked the question of the IHA this evening of how can they justify the cost of what is there? And particularly that £50 per piece of evidence administration fee. Because for me, charging people to defend themselves or charging people to prove that you've made a mistake is... You've already put a very high barrier to entry, and I get why you would want to do that in the sense of because otherwise everybody would be challenging something every other week. But to charge them to you've already charged them to even get to the table. To charge them to put something down on the table is even worse. You buy into the game of poker. I don't have to pay to put down. I'm not paying like extra to put my cards down, right? So it's a bit of a strange one, that one, and I don't understand that myself. And I think that it's a work in progress, and I think there's definitely things that would be. I think there's things that will hopefully improve as the season goes on. But we are on the 18th of October, and let's see what we do. Yes, the whole thing as well about having legal counsel but you can't is another thing that they kind of sort of need to hammer out. And like, if I get an answer, if I get answers to the questions, I'll bring them back here like I always do. Costs should be waived if overturned. Agree, 100% actually. If it's found that a mistake has been made and the appeal is overturned, you should get all the money back, every last piece of money you've put in back. George Ellison, thank you, Jamie. I think that's like I say, I'm sure as a professional, you know, having to be someone like that, you have to be registered. So you will have to be good at your job and have to meet a certain standard. But yeah, having a singular independent entity, someone who's not familiar kind of with the eccentricities of the sport, feels like a bad idea. Why was it advertised to release a video with feedback they only actually introduced after they recorded it on social media? A chunk of that in the beginning was because people didn't give them the videos on time. That was one of the issues. A conversation I had with the IHA about this, where they sort of said, you know, we're trying to get this done and we're struggling from clubs getting the video to us in the appropriate time frame, getting it uploaded, to which my response was, you're the governing body, find them. If they're not doing what you put in the ROC, if it's not in the rules competition, if they've broken the rules, fine them. You can fine a club £100 for the first time of not uploading your game video. Second time is $250, and then it can go up until eventually you're getting docked points and £500 per time. You've got a weapon. Use your weapon. And maybe you give people a warning as a first offence, right? Because things happen, right? Things happen, and ultimately you end up in a point where it's just bonkers. They had the video to review though. Yeah, but you've got to edit it. You've got to edit and then put people's voiceover over the top. That's the thing, Jamie. It's all well and good having something on Instat, so then take that off of Instat, edit the clip you want, potentially have replays, potentially zoom in on a piece of footage, to then give it to somebody to do a voiceover, to then make sure that video is then rendered to the proper size, to then go wherever you want it, be it YouTube, be it Twitter, be it Facebook. It sounds simple. As somebody who's tried to play around with it himself, it's not that simple. It's simple if you're good at it, but I get a strange feeling that the EIHA is not using tons and tons of like really, really high quality video production people on staff. So I get that, I get it, but slacken the call a little bit on them on that front, because that is a harder task than I think some of us would appreciate. On that front, but I mean, credit again to Nikki for kind of for getting Shane on and kind of chucking it in there. I think I think it'd be interesting. And I know Nikki says that he's like dropped a message across to get people, to get someone from the IHA to respond. I don't know if they will, but we will see what happens on that run. They've introduced the process, that's on them. Yeah, but I think as well, we do have the flip side of that as well, is the clubs have to participate appropriately. If clubs are not getting stuff there on time, that is on them too. The clubs have to do the thing. They can't sit there complaining about the discipline process being a dumpster fire and then get things to them late and then not abide by the policy. Like the social media policy in the DOPS bits and pieces now, like, is Shane Moore staring down the barrel of a fine? Probably not. But we will kind of see what happens on that front. You're right though. They've got, if you're going to introduce the process, you manage the process. But actually managing that process means they need to crack down on the people who are taking the mickey. And I think and I don't know whether they're doing that quite to whether they're not doing it because they can't or they won't. And one of those things I'd argue is kind of worse than the other on that front. But we'll kind of see. Either way, we kind of need to talk about some bits and pieces. Let's talk about some actual hockey rather than the gubbins around it, as we look at last weekend in the National Division. And we all started on Friday night on what turned out to be a bit of a bad weekend for the Raiders, who have traditionally slow starters and have started slowly and almost gotten slower, losing 5-1 at home to the Bees on Friday night. A couple of bodies missing. Harvey Stead still missing for the Bees, injured, I am told, but not had confirmation of just of what that injury is. But a 5-1 win for Dom Gabai's side as their good start to the season continues. And the side having an even better start to the season, all are doing really, really well. A 4-3 win over Peterborough at home on Saturday means Hull are keeping up the pressure on the big boys at the top of the table, whereas one of those big boys did not have a great start. We know that Milton Keynes, a 6-0 win over the Bristol Pitbulls, a shutout win for Jordan Headley, but Leeds lose at home to the Swindon Wildcats. 4-2, Aaron Nell's side get the win there. Well, I mean, Swindon nearly did a Swindon and kind of chucked this one away. But you know what? Fair play to the Cats. They've had such a horrible last month or so. To get that kind of a result is massive for them. Now, we know Swindon traditionally, and certainly they had that issue last year, of playing up or playing down to their opposition. And they had some very good games with Leeds last year. They were the first team to beat Leeds in the league last year. And they've gone and beaten Leeds in the league again in the Castle. So, I mean, Swindon, that's just kind of buoying their confidence. So they're sort of in this weird in-betweeny space of home games not at home, as we sort of edge closer to that sort of date of when we're told they're going to be back at the Link Centre. So that's only going to kind of boost confidence and sort of keep people sort of rocking in and sort of getting behind the team on that front. Sheffield, solid 3-2 win for the Dogs over the Tigers on Saturday at Sheffield, 3-2. Good result there for Sheffield, who've sort of wobbled up and down a little bit so far this season, but it feels like after quite a torrid, quite a problematic summer for Sheffield, you can forgive them for not being 100% finding their feet. And the one thing we know about the Steel Dogs organisation, and you know that transition from Greg Wood to Jason Hewitt is not going to change this. The Dogs are hardwired for the playoffs, so we will see how things kind of go on. Sounds like George Norcliffe injured for the Raiders. He is, yes. Norks is out, unfortunately. Jakes Fester managing an injury, not good for the Raiders, who are missing 8 players on Saturday in Solway. Yeah, and, people having the Dumfries flu and not travelling is a thing that I think we're going to see on occasion this season. It's a bit of a shame, especially because Solway brought quite a strong squad down to Slough. I can absolutely guarantee that MK will poop the bed again. Stacked roster, which will still ultimately fail. I still maintain that MK lack a ruthless streak that other teams have. Great individuals, but just don't seem to be able to kind of quite piece it together to put them over the line. Ian Holmes, Cats brought a strong offensive game and we didn't turn up at all. If you're going to play Leeds, play heavy. Yeah, that's entirely fair. Though it's up to Leeds to find that answer for themselves, and I'm sure they will. They've got the quality to kind of do it. But yeah, and then Saturday, the chains are off. They are free. The Solway Sharks on the board in the NHL National Division. A 5-2 win over the Raiders. A short bench Raiders, but still you only beat what's in front of you. A short bench Raiders side travelled to Dumfries, and Martin Grubb, Jamie Thompson, and the boys are off the mark at last. Last year's Division 1 national champions had gone 0-6. And there is finally one on the board. Nolan Gardner with the game-winning goal as to win the first game in the second tier for the Dumfries side. Callum Hepburn in net for the win. Curtis Warburton still out with an injury. And good on Callum Hepburn for being in net for that one. Of course, he's been a long-term guy with the project. He's been there for a really long time. And to be the first net miner to win a game for the Sharks as an organisation at this level, a local boy. That's a great thing as well, and that great sort of mould. And the game-winning goal goes to one of the new boys, and the winning goalie goes to the other, which was fun to see. Raiders looked under par and indeed had a fluke COVID thing going on. Yeah, and these things happen. Like these things do happen, of course, and it's just kind of how you respond to it. But yeah, I mean it's not been a good couple of weeks for the Raiders. They have felt very, very shaky. First weekend of full roster with McMullen injured in pre-season, team still pulling together. Yeah, and Leeds will get there. I mean, Leeds are going to be title contenders. We know this, Ian. It's not a surprise to anybody on that front, in that sense. And then Sunday, well, 4 points. The Sharks not just off the mark, but off the bottom as well. With Bristol losing at home 6-2 to Milton Keynes. Another bad loss, unfortunately, for the Pitbulls. Although we'll talk about their newest addition momentarily, but a 5-4 overtime win for the Sharks in Slough over the Bees means that not just the weekend with a win, 2 wins, a 4-point weekend for the Sharks, and they are now off the foot of the table. Joe Scutts and I had the honour of calling this one from the commentary box in Slough. Fascinating game, one that the Sharks almost coughed up. They were 4-1 to the good at one point. The highlights are now on the Bees YouTube channel to have a look at. The goal from John Dunbar is just otherworldly, ridiculous goal from him. Essentially, Solway just kind of hit the Bees hard and hit the Bees earlier. They're 3-0 up. In quite sort of short order before Dan Rose got them on the board. And yeah, at 4-1, I was pretty certain that I was interested to see, and I was certain that the Sharks were going to start managing the game, and they did. The issue was they got stung with a couple of penalties, and then they just seemed to try and keep managing the game out rather than kind of sort of using attack as the best form of defence. You've already beaten a keeper a couple of times, and rather than kind of going into sort of pushing up and kind of doing bits and pieces, they just weren't able to do stuff. They started almost trying to manage the game out from below their own hash marks, which is just a really terrible idea. The Bees pulled themselves back into it. Marcel Balach with the last minute equaliser to take the game to overtime. But Craig Peacock, a man who retired apparently, and is now back on the ice. Gardner with the shot that hits the end boards, bounces back out. Priest is down on his front, and all Craig Peacock had to do was tap into the empty net to send everybody back up north with a smile on their faces. Although it should be said that was a long old day for the Sharks. They left Dumfries at 7:30 in the morning on Sunday. They got home at 3:30 on Monday morning. All things considered, it's a long old road, and they put the miles in. At least a couple of the team were due up for work at 8 or something stupid like that. So, but fair play to the Sharks as they keep rolling. The Pitbulls, of course, are going to have to do a bit of reevaluation, but they have, of course, now got somebody new in to assist them. And thank you for the people who corrected me, because of course Tommy Carlon was someone who played over here and then gone to play. Gone to play in the UAE and then came back. But the announcement of the signing of Canadian forward Brennan Feasy. Feasy? We'll go for Feasy because that sounds less like feces. Sorry, Brennan. But Brennan Feasy joins the Pitbulls, having spent a large chunk of time last year in the UAE. I believe, was it with the Abu Dhabi Storm? I believe it was... just double checking the release here from the Pitbulls. Did play with Tanner Butler, of course, the one of the other Pitbulls imports. The Abu Dhabi Storms, yes, he was played with last year. Also played for Herentals in the Beneliga in the past, as well as playing in ECHL with Worcester and Adirondack, and played with Tanner Butler last year at the Evansville Thunderbolts in the SPHL. So that should be an interesting one for him. His resume looks interesting. It looks good rather than amazing. I think one of those players. I think for me, I'll have to see rather than looking at his resume and just immediately being sort of taken aback with it. But all things considered, an interesting thing. And of course, they've still got Max Babrea in their back pocket should they need him as an additional option. Elsewhere, then on Sunday, the Cats. Well, they were close, and then a last-minute dagger blow puts Peterborough over the line 5-4. One of those games where the Cats obviously pulled themselves back into it and then just let it slip away. And then Telford managing to get a big win over Hull, which stopped Hull from going top of the table on their own. A 6-5 overtime win for the Tigers at home on Sunday against the Seahawks. And seeing something here that Jamie McElroy has put in the chat. Don't sleep on Telford, especially with their new addition. Scotty Mack doesn't get the recognition he deserves in this league. Geezer's one of the best to do it at this level. I cannot disagree. Scott McKenzie is one of those players who should and still could walk into any team, all things considered. He played with both Solway imports whilst in the U Sports. Fair enough. 2 Man of the Match awards for Callum Hepburn over the weekend as well. I love Cal. Cal is a lovely, lovely bloke. I've interviewed him. There's a Hockey Stories piece on Callum Hepburn where I spoke to him for quite a while. That Sunday game, Man of the Match should have gone to Olivier Arsenault. Unreal. Superb addition to this league, let alone to Solway. What a player. Just that kind of defenseman who can kind of do a bit of everything. And I was thoroughly impressed with him on Sunday. I called the Bees Man of the Match, right? I said it was Dan Rose, and it was Dan Rose. But Callum, I thought they did have a really good weekend. Great weekend a great night on the Saturday. Couple of goals on Sunday. I think he'll want back if he's 100% honest with himself. But he still put up a good showing as well. It should be said. Bristol were very poor last weekend versus MK. MK should have scored double figures on Saturday night. MK never really out of second gear. Yeah, Bristol need to. Now it feels like there's more change to come at Bristol. I think they will find other things that they need to do there. Hell of a game. Hull played us for 45 minutes. Credit to Tom Watkins. Whatever he said to the teams, they came out for a different team in period 3. That's the joy of Tommy Watkins. He's not won 2 league titles at this level because he doesn't know what he's doing. Either way, upcoming weekend then, because another busy weekend in the National Division. We've got a couple of bits and pieces going down. The Battle of the Southwest this coming Saturday evening in Bristol between the Pitbulls and the Wildcats. That should be a really interesting game. Elsewhere, Leeds welcome the Bees. The Bees, of course, have had a really, really great start to the season. Dom Goodbye around that 3-point per game mark. Yeah, like I said though, the issue for me with the Bees, they need more scoring from other parts of the roster. They got a little bit of it on Sunday, but they need a little bit more from some folk. But yeah, Leeds versus the Bees is 6:30 PM at the Castle. MK take on Solway. So having won their first 2 games, a big ask for Martin Grubb and the Sharks as they head to the Thunderdome on Saturday night for a 7 PM face-off. The Raiders take on the Tigers on Saturday, 5:15 at Sapphire Ice and Leisure, and then 7:30 PM at Ice Sheffield. The Steel Dogs and the Phantoms. Potential to be either a low-key banger or put you to sleep. That one. Sunday then, Sunday then, 4 PM face-off for the Sharks. Talk about a tough weekend for them. They're at home to the Leeds Knights on Sunday. Yikes. The Bees take on the Hull Seahawks. That'll be a very interesting game. Last year's 10th and 11th place teams, who are now much higher up the table than they were previously. Those two meet at 5 PM at the Hangar. 5:30 PM in Peterborough between the Phantoms and the Raiders, who'll be looking to get anything out of this weekend at all. Swindon take on the Bristol Pitbulls in that sort of reverse game. It's in Bristol. And then Telford take on MK on Sunday at 6 PM. That one is in Shropshire. And then, of course, before we join you next Wednesday, there is a game this coming Tuesday night. So 6 days from today, 7:30 PM face-off, the Yorkshire Derby, Sheffield Steel Dogs and the Leeds Knights during half-term at Ice Sheffield. What that means then is that we will click a few buttons and let's go look at the table in the National League. Because, despite what everybody's saying, there is no such thing as a 3-way tie at the top. You have a team that is in first, a team that is in second, and a team that is in third. Leeds lead the table from MK, from Hull. Hull have a game in hand. Which, again, if Hull win that, they would be top of the National Division by themselves. And then the Bees are in 4th, ahead of Telford in 5th. This is crackers. There is 1 point that separates 1st and 5th, which is fantastic, speaks wonders for how this division has started off so far. Yes, we're only 8 games deep for most teams, but there's still some fantastic stuff going on here. Peterborough then in 6th and Sheffield in 7th, both teams on 8 points. Swindon currently occupy the last of what is the playoff spots at the moment. They have 2 games in hand on some of the teams above them though, so they would push themselves up at least at the moment as high as 6th. Raiders then 5 from 8, Solway 4 from 8 off the mark. Bristol now, they drop to the bottom, 3 points from their 8 games. So plenty of good stuff going on there in the National. Like we said, I said last year it was the most competitive division in the country by some distance. It appears to be shaping up that way again. A great start. Obviously, we've seen some traditional names there. Leeds and MK hanging around the top. And Telford have had a pretty decent start to the year as well, but with Hull and the Bees injecting themselves into it, are they going to be able to hang around? Are they going to fall away? What's going to happen when sort of at the bottom? What happens when Swindon are able to kind of be able to get home and put together sort of a run of games? Will they tire out because of everything that's happened, or will they be able to grit their teeth and kind of push their way through? So many machinations to kind of head out and do that. Just double checking any news. I don't believe there's been any change to the score between the Clan and the... Oh no, there literally has just been a minute ago. A goal for the Steelers puts them ahead in Glasgow. Marc-Olivier Vallerand has put the Steelers 2-1 ahead against Glasgow in that one. But yeah, comments, questions, anything you want to chuck in about the National Division, please do stick it in the chat bar. Let's have a look at those bits and pieces as we go along. I'm certainly interested, I think, to see how the Sharks do. A really, really tough weekend they've got ahead of them there. MK away, Leeds at home. But like I've said before, this is the challenge they wanted. They wanted to come and play with the big boys, and they're going to come and play with the big boys, it seems. Karen there Telfer fan, looking forward to having our 2 imports joining in this weekend. Extra bodies desperately needed. It's getting to that time of year as well. Like Romford have obviously had issues with people, with sickness. It's that time of year where sickness bugs are starting to go around. People are picking up sort of injuries and bits and pieces as things get a bit colder. Definitely a huge thing to be able to get those, especially the new guy, get him in. Because of course, Telford have been an import short since they signed the guy, got hurt in pre-season, and then disappeared pretty much immediately, which is a bit of a shame there. Either way, let's have a quick look. They're not the Glasgow Clan in any which way whatsoever. Well, the Manchester Storm play in Altrincham. We still call them the Manchester Storm. So I don't know. My Scottish geography is terrible, Mac. And even then, when I go up there, I'm only going to the very bottom of it. So I don't know what to tell you. I've been to Edinburgh once on a stag do. That's literally. I've been to Scotland once in my life, and as I said, it was a stag do. My memories of it are somewhat hazy, shall we say? I spent the day shooting people with paintball. Spent the day shooting paintball at people. Went to the hockey in the evening, and then drank a lot. So yeah, that was that. Anyway, North won. Not tons and tons of games in North won over the last weekend. Saturday, another traditionally quiet Saturday in the North, but the Nottingham Lions managed to avenge their defeat that they had to the Sheffield Scimitars earlier in the year. The Lions with a 5-3 win at Ice Sheffield in that early Saturday face-off there. And then the only other game on the Saturday, another defeat for Whitley in their new era under Tony Hand. But the Solihull Barons with a huge win, 6-2 at Hobbsmoat Road. They win over last year's second place team. Blackburn have had a really good start to the year, though. They are also on the end of the Barons' sword. A 9-3 win for Solihull in Blackburn on Sunday. A huge result there. A big 4-point weekend that the Barons needed after a little bit of a wobbly start to the campaign. Elsewhere, D-side, well, the Lions were ahead in this game before the Dragons decided that they'd had enough of their nonsense. 10-4 D-side get the win there. They've been on the end of some thumping results themselves, having conceded 9 goals. I think it was in back-to-back games earlier this year, D-side. So to put 10 on a team will feel good to them. But the Hull Jets continue their really bad away form. They've been almost unbeatable at the world's most versatile arena. Both Billingham and Whitley Bay beaten in Hull, but they just don't seem to be able to do the business on the road. Sheffield Scimitars get another win, having only won once in the entirety of last season. The Shims are now almost positively in good form. A 5-2 win for the Shims over the Jets. And then, well, Widnes did not have a good night. They had a good weekend last weekend. Getting pumped 9-1 at home by Billingham is not the sort of result you want to see there, but needed one for the Dragons. D-side 3 wins since the return of one Andrew McKinney. What a crushing surprise that is. You get a really, really high quality national division level player and you do really, really well. But yeah, Billingham with a big result there, 9-1 over Widnes. My understanding, and Joe will correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but it was Harrison Walker in net for that one is my understanding rather than Luca Tassandri, but we will of course see what happens there. Either way, we have the table at the moment as it stands in North 1. Billingham do lead the way, 14 points from 10 games. But Solihull in second place with 7 points, only having played 7 games. 3 games in hand. If they won all those games in hand, the Barons would be top of the division. Blackburn also on 10 points, as are Whitley, but Whitley have played 10 games, Blackburn have played 8. So those kind of bits and pieces will eventually even themselves out there. But the top of the table very tight, and Hull, given that by virtue of their own home form, are not a million miles away from this either. 8 points from 7 games keeps them very, very much in the conversation. D-side have 6 points from 7. Nottingham have already won twice this year, which is pretty impressive for them. And you've got those teams sort of lurking at the bottom there. Nottingham 5 from 8, Widnes 4 from 6, Sheffield 4 from 8. So Widnes in a position there to push themselves more firmly into the playoff spots. But Nottingham, Nottingham got themselves up into double figures points wise last year before their points deduction. And so we're starting to see maybe if Sheffield are starting to get results as well, that gap at the bottom is going to start sort of creeping in. And of course, with no Solway around to kind of spoil the party this year, who is going to be, will we see some more surprises in the North 1 playoffs come the end of the year? Obviously, that top 4 doesn't really strong when you all things considered. Billingham, Solihull, Blackburn, and Whitley. I think they'd be in most people's kind of sort of bits and pieces in terms of where you'd go looking for the title. But either way, there's still a lot of hockey to be played this coming weekend. Though, one game on Saturday. What is it with North One teams? Do you not like Saturday, or is football so entrenched you're just not bothering to take it on? Either way, only the one game in North One on Saturday. The Hull Jets take on the Sheffield Scimitars. Will the Scimitars, having beaten the Jets in Sheffield, will they be the first team to win at the world's most versatile arena this year? That remains to be seen. And then 4 games on the Sunday. Billingham take on Hull at the Forum at 5:30. Blackburn take on Widnes at the in Blackburn at 6 p.m. Whitley take on Deeside, that's a 5 p.m. face-off as well. And then the 7:20 p.m. face-off for the Nottingham Lions on the small pad at the NIC. They take on the Solihull Barons. I believe that game, of course, will be free on YouTube, as most Lions games usually are. Heading into South 1, before we pull up the bits and pieces, I'm just going to pull up this. I'm just going to get some stats ready on this as well, just because I saw that the club had put this out, and I was fascinated by it, and just because having sort of thought about it, so I'll just quickly pull this up whilst I get the screen loaded up for South 1. I've also just not put that quite high enough, have I? There we go. Because there weren't, again, not tons and tons of games. Only the one game on the Saturday, though. And it was the big one from Saturday. Slough and Streatham head-to-head at the Hangar. And it's the Red Hawks who come away with the points on this one. A 7-4 win. Slough pushing last year's champions hard, but the Red Hawks just to be able to kind of put a distance between themselves and get themselves over the line. The Jets then did respond pretty handily on Sunday. 7-0 away win against Milton Keynes. And a game there, the scoring was kind of spread out a bit for the Jets. Now, the Jets have put out a tweet today talking about their top point scorers. And if they wanted to hear anything about just how ridiculous their top line is, we'll go from 5-1 with the Jets' top point scorers so far. So they have, and I'm sure Joe will correct me because hopefully they've got these stats in the right places. 5th top scorer at the moment, Ollie Hemmings-Mayer. He is 1 goal, 7 assists for 8 points. 4th is Timo Lindgren. He has 3 goals and 5 assists for 8 points. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of this. Christian Moore, from 9 games played, 3 goals, 16 assists for 19 points. Sebastian Moore, then 9 games played, 14 goals and 8 assists for 22 points. And then Jack Goodchild, having played 9 games, has 14 goals and 12 assists for 26 points. 9 games, 26 points. Deary me, that top line for Slough is utterly, utterly ridiculous. That gap between Lindgren, if you think there is an 11-point gap there between 3rd and 4th. I said I was worried where the goals were going to come from for Slough this year, because last year in South 1 they only scored about 70 goals and they were the 2nd lowest scoring team. They finished 4th but just didn't score a lot. If only there was a site you could check this, check if it's right on. Yeah, I can't click 6 things at once, Joe, but I can hold this and do that. But I also wanted to read the Slough tweet, of course, because that was they'd obviously put that out themselves. But that Jets top line is just insane. Like if you're picking the South 1, sort of like teams of the year and bits and pieces like that, and all-star teams, they're immediately in the conversation. Like. We could feasibly be at a point, if Slough won the title, that entire line could just sweep the first line of the thing if bits and pieces happen like that. It would be utterly ridiculous. The issue for Slough is, where is your secondary scoring? Like, that's crazy. Your 5th top point scorer has 1 goal. So let's just check all that. And this is the other thing as well, Joe, is that your site does not scale well on phones. So I'm trying to hold everything up on there. If I do that, this will hopefully do it better for me. There we go. Yeah, so they have fortunately just made the common sense move to just copy it out. Oh, Jacob Minter also has 8 points from 9 games. He is 1+7 as well as Ollie Hemmings-Mayer. I was actually impressed with Minter and Soper actually for Slough. If you've not had the chance to watch Slough, go watch Slough. They're very interesting. I found them a very interesting side to watch last year. Either way, 7-0 win for them. Sunday then a big win for Chelsea. They beat Solent by 5-2. Romford with a big win, condemning Oxford to yet another defeat. 6-3 the Buccaneers win against the City Stars. I did say if you sleep on the Bucks, they're going to do you damage. But then a massive, massive result on the high road. Streatham not only losing, but shut out by Invicta. In Streatham. That is a massive, massive result in the context of the division. When you think of how all powerful the Red Hawks have been, let's put this into some perspective. Last year, if you take out the National Division 1 final, Streatham lost twice. Ignore all the bits and pieces about all the cup games that got scratched because they won the games, but Streatham lost twice in the league. It's now October and they've lost twice already. We're at exactly the same point last year in North 1 where Solway lost their second and final defeat of the season. Streatham, to repeat the kind of feat, are going to need to literally run the table. Now, do I think Streatham can win the title? Absolutely. You'd almost have them as favourites for it, even off the back of this loss. But are they going to be quite as all-conquering? It looks like they potentially may not be. They've also released Ewan Hill during the week as well. No sort of particular word as to why, but he has been released. He was on a two-way deal with the Raiders. I assume he will kind of return there. And given the Raiders have had a lot of sickness, an extra body isn't going to go amiss. But at the moment, it says that the Slough Jets are top of South 1. Now, of course, they've got Chelmsford with a game in hand, who would draw level with them, and Streatham with 2 games in hand, who would go above them if they won all the games. But one team on 12 and 2 teams on 10. Again, it looks like we've got some really solid stuff going on so far. Invicta's win against Streatham pulls them away from the rest of the pack. They have 8 points from 6 games. And then it all gets a bit tighter. Solent have only got 4 points from their 5 games. Romford 4 from 7. MK and Oxford are on 2 points apiece. MK have only played 4 games. Oxford have played 6 so far. So a very, very tough start to the year for the City Stars. Yeah, a couple of bits of talk here. I can see Ben from Zero Pucks Given, John Crow there as well, talking about Brindley Caps being superb for the Buccaneers over the course of the weekend. I called already. Streatham need a refresh. I mean, I think the interesting thing they've got there is that they've started to get better about bringing those guys through. But where does the refresh happen? I think becomes the question, Mac. Where do you make that bit of tinkering? Because they've got so many decent players and they've kind of added to that roster this year, like adding in guys like Josh Martin and JJ Pitchley does give them, admittedly it is a bit more of the same, but it's guys with a great amount of experience at the level above coming down. Up 2-2 between the Clan and the Steelers. Alex Forbes, of course, former commentary player, getting the second goal for the home team there. But yeah, I've heard a lot about Brindley Caps. I might need to try and make more of a point of seeing this young man play. Well, Timo sent me a picture this week of the puck when I assisted his first ever E&L goal in Cardiff. I've never felt so old. I feel old just hearing that story. Deary me, that is depressing, isn't it? We are old men. We are old men, Mac. I'm really sorry, mate. But yeah, Oxford, I genuinely thought Oxford would be able to put some more bits and pieces together, and they just don't seem to quite. It hasn't quite clicked so far, and you do wonder. They've obviously added somebody from Swindon NIHL 2. They still officially haven't withdrawn from the league yet. It should be said, but certainly there's you do wonder how long before. You do wonder how long before Simon Anderson and Shane Moore are forced to kind of start pulling the trigger a little bit about some stuff in Oxford. My plan is to be in Gosport on Saturday for the Solent Devils and the City Stars. So I'm going to be in Gosport on Trafalgar Day. That'll be fun. So that will definitely be an interesting one. I'm just double checking because I don't want to say the wrong name here, because of course they have just added. They did just add somebody, and then they've not even put him on the. What was the name of this young lad that they've added? Seems to be a few players being released at the minute. Well, it's about that time, isn't it, where teams have sort of realised that some of the guys just aren't right, and sometimes when it's not right now, you have to kind of pull the trigger, and you have to do something about it. I think Will Harding, that's the name of the young lad who's joined Oxford from Swindon. Hill didn't perform to the levels expected, as regular as was expected. I mean, yeah, I think there's. I mean, he had a relatively decent point return on that one, but we will see what happens on that one. Yes, I actually beat you to it, Joe, for once. Hooray! That's all I get. That's my one. I think that's probably all I'm going to get for a little while there. Either way, North 2. Let's have a look up to North 2. Our the sleeper division in terms of unexpected things happening there. And well, Saturday. A couple of games on Saturday, a massive win for the Coventry NIHL Blaze, who've started this season relatively well. A 9-0 win for them in the Skydo against the Nottingham Lions too. And then the other game on Saturday, we said it was going to be a massive one in terms of the division. The old guard in terms of leading the way versus the newer one, and the Sutton Sting. Perfect start to the season is gone. The Telford Tigers 2 with a 9-6 win over Sutton ends their perfect start, and the Tigers reassert their dominance over North 2. Then on Sunday, a couple of the other teams having a go at it. The Battle of the New Boys, and well, as we've seen, there's a few suspensions out of that game, but overall a big win for the Billingham Buccaneers. They win by 8 goals to 1 against the Kingston Sharks, and then the Sheffield Titans managed to squeak out a win in Bradford against the Bulldogs. 6-5 the final score there, putting Sheffield over the top. Obviously not tons and tons of games played so far. A bit of a mishmash. Altrincham, of course, have only played 4 games so far. Sutton, though, still sit top by virtue of the fact that they've played a lot more games than everybody else. But 4 games in hand for Telford means they've officially reined in the Sting. If the Tigers won all of their games in hand, they would go back to the top of the table. Coventry, though, is still hanging around. 8 games played, 12 points. Obviously, mathematically, they could not be top at the moment. But if people make mistakes and they slip up, the Blaze could find their way in. The Titans, with their win over Bradford, sees them secure 4th place after the weekend, 7 points from 8. Billingham, big win, gets them up to 6 points from 8. That puts them in 5th. Bradford, 5 from 6. Altrincham, 4 from 4. So obviously a lot of work there to be done in Altrincham. Nottingham, 3 from 8. Kingston at the bottom, 6 games played, 6 defeats, 60 goals conceded. Officially a 10 goals against per game for the newest additions to North 2. But yeah, so a bit of a shame there for Sutton. Obviously, they were onto a very, very good thing. Their first defeat of the season. These things, of course, do happen. And we know the one thing from the last couple of years of North 2 is that Telford side that keeps getting guys coming back is very, very solid at this level. Cannot be underestimated just how good they are at this division. Did wonder whether they might make that option of stepping up into North 1 along with the Hull Jets, but obviously have kind of decided to stay where they are. Good news there out of Belfast. Prince there with the equaliser. Belfast get themselves on parity with Dinamo Pardubice with a little over 12 minutes to go. Hopefully the Giants can pull that one out and get themselves over the line. That would be fantastic to see. We will have a quick look then at South 2. Not many games in this division at the moment either, but some very, very interesting results, especially the one in Bristol on Saturday night. Another one of the couple of the big boys going head to head. The Huskies were in a hole, but pulled it all the way back to win by 4 goals to 3 against the Bristol Pitbulls. Huge win for the Huskies. Now, of course, we've been told by the Huskies themselves that this is their intention is for this to be their last year in South 2, that they want to make the move up to Division 1 next season. But Sam Roberts with the unassisted game winner there late on in the day to get the Huskies over the line against the Pitbulls. The other games from Saturday, Chelmsford with a 3-2 win over Streatham. Very yo-yo start to the season so far for that Blackhawk. So Kieran Long scores for Belfast. Hooray, hooray, hooray! We love Kieran Long here at the What's Current stream. One of the finest Brits of his generation. I will not hear any different. And then a big result for the Solent Junior Devils. They win by 6 goals to 3 against the Basins at Buffalo down in Gosport on Saturday evening. Junior Devils did call in a fair few guys eligible from the division above. Harry Cloutman, of course, who helps with the coaching. He was on the ice, as was Jack Peacock, and a couple of others from the senior Devils made an appearance for the junior Devils here. Basingstoke put out as much of a full strength roster as they can. They started They started young Mackenzie Parsons for the first time. Not Mackenzie Parsons. I've completely forgotten his name. Morgan Parsons. Sorry, for the first time this year. Not the greatest of ones for him. But one of the things they wanted to do was not just give Dan Weller-Evans every single game. They wanted to get Morgan into games, get him facing shots in giving him 60 minutes as much as he could. So not the best of starts for him, but glad to see that he got out on the ice and got the full 60. Just the one game then from Sunday in that division, and it's a win for the Oxford Rising Stars. They defeat so Chelmsford had a great Saturday, not as good a Sunday down at the Oxpen. 6-2, the Rising Stars get the W in that one. Which means we'll have a look at the table, which is, of course, is all over the place. That first win for Oxford in only their second game of the campaign. But at the moment, 2 teams on 8 points. Peterborough are top at the moment, followed by Haringey, who have a perfect 4-from-4 record. One of the few teams that still has one. The other one is a little bit further down because they've not played as many games. Bristol 7-from-7, not the greatest of starts for them so far. The Blackhawks 6-from-6. Chelmsford 6-from-7, and then there's the big question there. Guildford Phoenix 3 games played, 6 points, perfect start for them. 23 goals scored and only 7 conceded, which is another great start from the Phoenix. 6 points as well for the Cardiff Fire from their 5 games, and Invicta at the moment round out the playoff positions 4-from-4. The Junior Devils have 4 points themselves from their 5 games, followed by Basingstoke with 2-from-4, Oxford 2-from-2, and at the bottom Lee Valley Lions, who have been much better this year, all things considered. 10 goals scored inside 4 games, that's positively massive for them so far, but they have lost every game so far. 29 goals conceded in 4 games so far for the Lions. They once again prop up Division 2 South. Well, there we go then. We've gone through all of the bits and pieces there. What we will do very quickly is we will just quickly scoot back because I've just realised that we've not done the fixtures. Not done the fixtures properly because I'm a silly person. What we'll do very quickly, let's just press some buttons. I got so into my flow that I just completely forgot to do the upcoming bits and pieces in stuff. Which is very, very silly of me. So my sincere apologies for that. That's the joy of doing your own show. And it's also probably the joy of the fact I should really write down my format. But I never do. I just keep everything in my head like a silly person. But that's the joy of doing this live as well. It's not polished. It's not as polished as it could be. But I don't like things that are kind of that are massively overly polished. Let's have a look at those fixtures that we've missed out like a cretin. So sorry about that to everybody. We'll go back to South 1 very quickly because I'm an Egypt. Slough take on Romford. That could be very, very interesting. If Slough get into their rhythm, they can absolutely murder that team. But if the Buccaneers can hang around, Brindley Caps going up against that holy trinity. The top line for the Jets could be interesting. 6:30 at the Hangar. 5 p.m. then. This is where you'll find me this weekend down in Gosport between the Devils and the City Stars. And that rounds out Saturday. Sunday, MK take on Chelmsford at 6:45 at the Thunderdome. Oxford are at home to Streatham, having beaten them there the last time they met. This is a league game only, this one though. 6:15 face-off for the Ox Pens. And then the Buccaneers return the favour to the Slough Jets at 5:15 on Sunday. North 2 fixtures then. We don't have a face-off time for Altrincham and Sutton, but we'll assume it'll happen at some point on Saturday. 7 p.m. in Telford for the Tigers 2 against the Bradford Bulldogs. Sunday then, Bradford head back home. They take on the Coventry NHL Blaze. That's a 5:30 face-off in Bradford. 5:10 face-off for the Sheffield Titans. They take on the Kingston Sharks, who will be looking for their first points of the campaign. And then we look at the remaining fixtures from South 2. This coming Saturday, a couple of games. Chelmsford take on Bristol, who will look to try and press on from their inconsistent start to the year. Haringey welcome Cardiff to Ali Pally as the 2 teams from the capitals battle it out at the top of the hill in London. And Peterborough take on Basingstoke. That's at 6:30 p.m. in Peterborough. Sunday then, the Buffalo head home. Just the unenviable task of taking on the Guildford Phoenix. Having run them close-ish, the 7-3 scoreline I thought flattered the Phoenix a bit from the spectrum. But Basingstoke versus Guildford on Sunday at 6:30. It's a 4:15 p.m. face-off in Bristol between the Pitbulls and the Streatham Blackhawks. And then Cardiff Fire welcome the Invicta Mustangs down to Cardiff Bay. Telford 2 versus Bradford now a 5:30 p.m. face-off. Thank you very much for that, Karen. I knew you could be relied on to remind us of our obligations there. been a number of Saturday fixtures now moved earlier. Yes, I had seen something along those lines that happened, but fair play to them for. Apologies for not. I'm just reading bits and pieces off of Joe's site, nhlstats.wordpress.com, the place to get all the official tables for bits and pieces, despite what other people might put elsewhere on that front. But there we go. The entire NHL, top to bottom, Leeds to Lee Valley, done and done. We've touched on every single game from across the whole lot. Questions, comments, anything anybody wants to throw in the chat. If you're new to the What's Current stream, once we've gone through the whole lot, we open the door. Anything hockey related anybody wants to talk about, let's have a bit of a chat now for sort of 5-10 minutes, and then we kind of and then we can kind of roll it from there. Joe, it might be worth checking the Telford website. I believe they might have put that on there, but yes, Karen, definitely do send Joe a list. Just so he can update things, that'd be massively appreciated. NHL Stats is a superb resource, but it's only as good as the information Joe gets given. If you don't give Joe the information, it doesn't really exist. That's also a question, Joe, because there was a goal that was given to somebody incorrectly on Sunday. Are we going to correct this? Has it been corrected? Is the key question here. We will find that out momentarily. But yes, questions, comments. Obviously, the NHL season has kicked off in North America. Carolina apparently struggling to get prospects to sign because they don't want to go where they're told. Joe has enough to do, lol. He does. This is very true. He's a very, very busy man, is Mr. Scott. Yes, thank you for this, Andrew. This is great, of course. The two new women's teams into the WNIHL structure, the Cambridge Kodiaks and the Caledonia Steel Queens, both managing to get their first wins in the structure. So congratulations to them on that. Jamie's brought up the very good point of the thoughts on the GB under-20 squad. I thought it was okay. I was actually fortunate enough to have a quick chat to Martin Grubb on Sunday in Slough, just about bits and pieces, and he said just how tough the balance. He explained to me how tough that balancing act is that he does. Yes, as the dubious goal panel, I have changed this as well as anyone else who brings it to my attention. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Joe. But yeah, that GB under 20 squad, where we can, what we might try doing very, very quickly is just seeing whether we can. Let's try and get the picture up so we can all look at it together. That might be a really, really good way of doing this. Congratulations as well to Donna Laverty, who's the new team manager of the GB Under-18s women. I know Sean Alderson as well. Congratulations to him. I know he's the interim head coach. What we'll do very quickly, and if I just do that. So there we go. We can see the roster for the GB men's under-20 side. So we've got Ben Norton from the Bristol Pitbulls and Alex Oldale as your netminders, with Dan Norton as the emergency backup. A defence then of Kel Beattie, Kieran Chung, of course, he's playing over in Canada, Sam Cooper, Archie Hazeldine, Malik Martelli, Billy Thorpe and Jacob White-Say. Forward-wise then we have Finn Braden, Ben Brown, Owen Bruton, Ollie Endicott, Carter Hamill, Jack Hopkins, Connolly, Samuel Line, Austin Osborne, Dawson Osborne, the Osborne brothers, who are also playing for the Vernon Oilers over in the USPHL, who are owned by a person that I've interviewed. Go check back on Hockey Stories for more about that. Lucas Price of the Telford Tigers, Josh Shaw and Max Stewart round out the GB under 20s roster there. It looks very, very strong to me. That D looks really, really good. Hazeldine has really stepped up for Coventry. He's also going to need to step up a bit more now. Obviously, Coventry have just released one of their import defensemen. So Hazeldine is probably going to be stepping into playing like 10-15 minutes this weekend. Who do Coventry have on Saturday? Belfast. So that bodes well there. But some good depth there. Great to see Jacob White-Say. I know he's very highly thought of. But you think of that sort of that top four, or at least that top five of Beattie, Chung, Cooper, Hazeldine and Martelli. Because that's probably what that top five will be. That looks really, really good to me, and that is also the ability to add some offense from the back end as well. Up front, some really, really great names. Finn Braden, of course, who we know has just got oozing stuff. The players are picked due to how they fit into a system, not the points they put up. That's what some people don't understand. And this is what Martin Grubb was saying to me as well. That he's got to pick the right players for the right situations, not just picking people, which is why one of the Hamill brothers is in the team and the other one is a reserve, because it's picking the right person for the right situation there. There's guys that can kind of do a bit of everything. And there's some, and also, one of the things Martin sort of said to me was, particularly when you think of a player like Connor Lee, is 16 years old, but there's an opportunity now to get him in and to then pull him through. And also, having seen Connor Lee with my own two eyes, I'd have him in this team. He looks absolutely stellar. 16 years old, playing with fully grown adults in the elite league. And the thing I was really impressed, and I said this the other day, was I wasn't just impressed with the fact that they put him out there, but it's putting him in positions and putting him into a role that fits his skill set. Lots of energy, plays in the middle, does well on face-offs. So what did Matt Ginn have him doing? He put him at the middle and he made him be the energy guy, and he had him taking face-offs against men 10, 12 years older than him. Like, this kid is good. He's really, really good. And some people may feel like, that there's some older guys for whom it's their last chance, who may be a bit hard done by. I had a few people mention to me netminder-wise about people like Luca Tasadri or Tyler Delabatouche. When you consider someone like Alex Oldale is, sitting on the bench for Manchester, not seeing much in the way of ice time. But the Callum Field is the omission for me. I think the issue, and again, the issue will be, who does Callum Field replace in that roster? Because this was a conversation people had to me about Kieran Long in the GB side, and for me, it was really obvious where you put Kieran Long into that GB side over some of the other players that they put in there. Callum Field, I mean, potentially you would have considered him in that sort of third line, sort of secondary point scoring sort of winger role. I wouldn't have Callum Field kind of leading the line on that front, but I certainly feel Callum is probably one of the ones who was probably closer to being in than some of the others who've ended up on the reserve list. In my opinion, I feel he's I get why MK fans want all of their players in all of the time, but if you're taking Max Stewart or Callum Field, you're taking Max Stewart. If you're taking Carter Hamill to do Carter Hamill's role over. Would be there over Callum Field and over Cam. So there's it's a system that Martin plays, and he's got guys in to do that. And I'm very, very interested to see how that roster does come the time. Of course, good on Martin managing to wrangle it that the championships are in Dumfries, so everybody has to come to him. Doesn't want to travel, just make the entire championship come to his front door. I did see as well, I think it was something ridiculous, like the pass for that. I have Field over Hamill. But again, what role's Ham there to do? Is Hamill there as your fourth line energy guy? Because I'm not picking Callum Field to do that. I would have Field on the... If I'm having Field, I have him as like a third line winger myself. But... Yay! Belfast have won! Good for them. Well done for them. On that front. Just click a button there. Click a few buttons to make that all go away now. But yeah, there's a few bits, and people, you can argue the toss over it, but I think I saw somewhere that I believe they put down that the tournament pass is like 25 quid for an adult, and kids are free with a paying adult. If you're in the north of England, or like within an hour or two's driving distance of Dumfries, 25 quid for all that hockey, go. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be so good. I mean, you should definitely get it. Like, the thing I have criticised GB for as like a programme is it's not very good about playing around the country. It's not very good about playing outside of like a couple of places. And I get it. Dumfries has experience of hosting these championships, and they, the infrastructure is there, and they kind of know what to do, particularly for these for the sort of lower division men's and women's junior tournaments. And I get that. And like Dumfries, for all the will in the world, is not like is not the most central place to kind of get to. But if you're nearby and you can get there, definitely maybe go and have a look. Like my trip to Dumfries is going to be kind of a once a year thing at most. But certainly if I'm near that close to a World Championship, and that's our GB roster for the under-20s, I'd definitely be making an effort to go and check that out, because that team looks very, very strong, and I'd be really interested to see how it does. So it would definitely be worth your while if you get the opportunity and you're nearby enough to go and take advantage of that when the under-20s come around. Go and have a check of that. I do not think you'll be disappointed, and especially if that's the price to go watch every game. Get on that right away. The whole team can't be MK. It can. It's the under-18s that can't all be MK because they only have one under-18 player. Right, let's just have a quick double check of any other news. Just make sure there's nothing else coming out. There's the confirmation there. 3-2. Sadly, not enough to reach the knockouts. 2 goals from Kieran Long and 1 from Greg Prince give us our 3rd win to close out the Champions Hockey League campaign at the SSE. Well, fair play to Belfast for ending out on a win. I'm looking forward to it. Go midweek. Can't miss my Tigers on weekends. Lol. Whatever would you do? Whatever would you do, Karen, if you went to Telford? We'd all think something was wrong. But there we go. Such is life on that one. Apologies there. I've just realised that my copy of Private Eye is sat here on the table. So I'm just going to quickly just move that around. Fortunately, as well, my recycling bin is right over there. There we go. But yeah, where are we? We're at 9:15. Last call, ladies and gentlemen. If questions, comments, anything else? No, Jamie, we're not talking about the Caps opening game. We can talk about the win over Calgary instead. And Darcy Kemper's little baby. Let's talk about that instead. Hockey card related folk. If you see me around, I've got little packs of cards that I'm giving out free to people, just sort of spares and bits and pieces. So if you ever do see me around, do. Upper Deck Series 1, I believe, is officially out. I know my suppliers are getting it tomorrow. So I'll be getting myself a box of that. That should be interesting. I've got some Tim Hortons cards on order as well. So I'm looking forward to those coming. Very, very much enjoying stuff. The less I do about the Caps last Friday, the better. Very much so. We don't talk about it. Oh, dear me. But yes, like I say, I will be in Gosport this weekend. I just need I personally wanted to be a little bit closer to home this weekend. Also, as well, I'm doing some bits. I've done some bits and pieces with Oxford. I'm going to be doing some bits and pieces as well with Solent, just because they're on my doorstep. So be prepared for what should be a really interesting interview coming out in the next little while from the Devils. Hoping to do a couple with them. Just kind of open the door and shine a light on the club a little bit more. I don't think I've had this sort of conversation with them. The one thing the Devils don't like to do is they don't like to toot their own horn too much. They kind of want their what they do to kind of show for itself. But I've sort of said to them, actually, maybe occasionally there's nothing wrong with saying. There's nothing wrong if you think you're doing good with saying that you're doing good on various bits and pieces. So looking forward as well to just kind of interviewing some different people who I haven't had the chance to interview before. And there are some really interesting folk who play for the Devils, I think, that people will enjoy hearing from. So maybe not Mac. Mac won't enjoy it, but a few other people might, all things considered. Either way, I think we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to, well, the NIHL at the moment now, because Muggins here is on his mission. Banners on the Road series is there to capture every game I go to. New one coming soon. My game from Sunday, just haven't had the chance to write up, but it is coming. I promise you it'll be there before the weekend. As well as the back catalogue of everything from the last 12 years I've done, whether it's related to the Basingstoke Bison, the NIHL, or wherever I've gone around this crazy world of hockey, including our Hockey Story series. Long form, lovely bits and pieces to read. Sit down with a cup of coffee and have a read of them, or even a listen to them. There's interviews there as well that you can listen to from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. Players, officials, player agents, all sorts of folk from the NIHL to the NHL and beyond. As we sort of look in depth into the weird world of hockey. The back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast is there, as well as Dice Hockey, our free to download tabletop ice hockey game that you can play at home with a few bits and pieces around your house. It's free to download. However, if you do enjoy it, all I ask is that if you do enjoy it, please chuck a few quid in the direction of Parkinson's UK, because my dad has Parkinson's and it's crap and I really don't like it, and my dad doesn't like having it either. So if we could find a way to raise some money for a cure, that'd be massively appreciated. Like I said, tons of stuff there. 12 and a half years worth of stuff over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting news through your Facebook feed, you can use that and you will get all of every piece, as well as the link to every stream through Facebook as well. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is at bannersotw. That is the best place to keep up with me and everything I'm doing, and where I kind of do a bit of a rolling commentary on what's going on in ice hockey. All the links, of course, for all of that are down below, as is the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. From there, you can, like I say, it's BOTW is not going behind a paywall. It's never going to do that. But what I am doing is I'm putting out the virtual busking hat just to help kind of cover some of my costs for across the year, because the amount of money I'm having to spend is going up. So if you enjoy what you see, if you enjoy what you read, please do consider chucking a few quid in. If you can't, please don't use the money for what you need it. If you've got some spare and you'd like to contribute, that would be fantastic. If you can't, it's absolutely fine. If you can't, if money's not a thing that you're able to give right now, chuck us a retweet, chuck us a share, do something that way. And of course, we're on YouTube, Wednesday nights, 8 PM, home of the NHL's first and best live show to cover all the bits and pieces. It's the BOTW What's Current stream. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so it tells you when we go live. Keep that the algorithm hamster running on his wheel. And there's plenty of good bits and pieces to have there. But like I say, you can watch the shows back, of course, they're all there, or lots of stuff on the YouTube channel. But of course, Wednesday nights, 8 PM, you can join us here to chat all things NHL on the What's Current stream. Well, there we go, another one in the books. Been a bit of a weird October so far, can't lie. It's been pretty crazy, but enjoying it. And only 2 weeks out from going to Scotland, which is also really mad, all things considered. Nearly half term as well down here as well, so hopefully your kids are going to have some fun. We've got that game Tuesday night up in Sheffield, the half term special between the Dogs and the Knights. Should be lots of fun. And of course, not a million miles away from someone, if he's still in the chat, Mac, all the best for the weekend. Double duty on the comms for Mr. McElroy on opposite sides of the Great Divide in Sheffield. So enjoy that one, buddy. Having had the chance to do both divisions this year, I had a lot of fun, so I'm sure you will as well. Be happy, everybody. Wherever you are, if you can, be happy. But if you can't be happy, then please, whatever you do, please be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Have a great hockey weekend wherever you find it. We'll see you back here next Wednesday night, 8 PM, for the BOTW What's Current stream. Take care, everyone.